Hello everyone, and I hope you're all having a wonderful day. Today we're going to follow a very special moment in Trieu Duong's journey as he takes care of baby Truc Lam, feeding her, gently putting her to sleep, and then building a brand new kitchen with his own hands so he can cook while still caring for his little daughter. But the most heartwarming part comes later, when Truc Lam wakes up and joins him on his back as the two continue working together, leading up to the very first meal cooked on the new stove. If you enjoy this kind of peaceful and meaningful story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any of the upcoming videos. The morning begins quietly in the small countryside home. A soft breeze moves through the trees outside, and the first rays of sunlight slowly brighten the yard. Inside the house, Trieu Duong gently lifts baby Truc Lam into his arms. She has just woken up, her tiny eyes still sleepy as she stretches her little hands in the air. Trieu Duong smiles warmly as he holds her close. Since Truc Lam came into his life, mornings like this have become the most important part of his day. No matter how much work needs to be done outside, the first thing he always focuses on is taking care of her. He sits down carefully and prepares to feed Truc Lam. The house is quiet, filled only with the peaceful sounds of the countryside waking up. Birds begin singing somewhere in the distance, and the wind gently rustles through the bamboo trees nearby. Truc Lam drinks calmly in Trieu Duong's arms. Every once in a while she pauses and looks up at him with curious eyes, as if trying to recognize his face again. Trieu Duong gently talks to her in a soft voice, smiling every time she blinks or moves her tiny fingers. Moments like this may seem simple, but for Trieu Duong, they are full of meaning. Raising a baby alone is not easy, but every small moment of care and connection makes the effort worthwhile. After finishing her milk, Truc Lam slowly begins to feel sleepy again. Her eyelids grow heavier, and she rests her head against Trieu Duong's shoulder. Seeing this, Trieu Duong stands up and begins gently patting her back. He slowly walks around the room, rocking her in his arms. The morning sun outside grows brighter, but inside the house, everything remains calm and quiet. Trieu Duong hums softly while continuing to rock Truc Lam. After a few minutes, Truc Lam finally falls asleep. Her breathing becomes slow and steady, and her tiny hands relax completely. Trieu Duong carefully lowers her onto a small mattress. He adjusts the blanket around her body, making sure she stays warm and comfortable. For a moment, he stays beside her, watching quietly to make sure she is sleeping peacefully. Once he is certain that Truc Lam is fully asleep, Trieu Duong quietly steps outside. Today, he has an important task. Since Truc Lam arrived, daily life has changed a lot. Cooking, working, and caring for a baby all at the same time has become a real challenge. The old cooking area he used before is located too far from the house, which makes it difficult for him to keep an eye on Truc Lam while preparing meals. Because of that, Trieu Duong has decided to build a new kitchen space right next to the house. It does not need to be fancy, it only needs to be practical. Something simple that allows him to cook while still staying close enough to watch over Truc Lam. Trieu Duong walks around the yard, carefully looking for the best spot. After a moment of thinking, he chooses a place near the side of the house where the ground is flat and convenient. He begins clearing the area. Dry leaves, loose dirt, and small stones are pushed aside as he prepares the ground for the new cooking space. The work is steady and focused. Trieu Duong has always been someone who enjoys building things with his hands. Piece by piece, he gathers the materials he will need: stones from nearby areas, some wooden pieces, and a few basic tools. Everything will be simple, but strong enough to support daily cooking. The goal is to create a small stove and workspace that will make life easier while caring for Truc Lam. While Trieu Duong works, the peaceful sounds of the countryside continue around him. The wind moves gently through the trees, and birds occasionally fly overhead. Time passes slowly. After clearing the ground, Trieu Duong begins arranging the stones that will form the base of the stove. Each stone is placed carefully so that the structure will be stable. Building a stove like this requires patience. Every stone must fit properly so the base can support cooking pots and withstand the heat from firewood. Trieu Duong takes his time adjusting the stones until they sit firmly in place. As he continues working, he occasionally pauses and looks toward the house. Inside, Truc Lam is still sleeping. When taking care of a baby, even the smallest sound can make a parent stop what they are doing. Trieu Duong listens carefully every few minutes, just in case she wakes up. For now, everything remains quiet. The base of the stove slowly begins to take shape. At first, it is just a rough outline of stones, but gradually the structure becomes more defined. This new cooking area will make a big difference in daily life. Instead of walking back and forth between the house and the old kitchen area, Trieu Duong will now be able to cook nearby while keeping Truc Lam within sight. That means he can take care of her whenever she needs him. For someone raising a baby, small changes like this can make a huge difference. After finishing the basic foundation, Trieu Duong steps back and looks at what he has built so far. There is still more work ahead, but the main structure of the new stove is beginning to appear. Just as he prepares to continue working, a faint sound comes from inside the house. Trieu Duong immediately stops. He listens carefully. A soft cry echoes from the room. Truc Lam has woken up. Without hesitation, Trieu Duong puts down his tools and quickly walks back into the house. Inside, Truc Lam is moving her small arms and making soft crying sounds, clearly looking for someone familiar. The moment Trieu Duong picks her up, she immediately begins to calm down. He gently rocks her while speaking softly, reassuring her that everything is all right. Truc Lam looks up at Trieu Duong with wide eyes, slowly relaxing as she hears his voice. But now that she is awake, she clearly does not want to lie down alone anymore. Trieu Duong smiles, already knowing what to do next. He reaches for a long cloth that he often uses when working while carrying Truc Lam. Carefully, Trieu Duong wraps the cloth around his body and gently places Truc Lam onto his back. With slow and practiced movements, he secures the cloth so that she is held safely and comfortably. Truc Lam rests quietly against Trieu Duong's back, her small head leaning softly to one side. Now both father and daughter are ready to continue the day together. With Truc Lam safely wrapped behind him, Trieu Duong walks back outside toward the unfinished kitchen area. There is still plenty of work waiting, but this time Trieu Duong will not be working alone. With Truc Lam resting securely on his back, Trieu Duong walks slowly back toward the unfinished kitchen area. The cloth is wrapped firmly but comfortably, allowing him to move freely while keeping Truc Lam close and safe. From behind, the small baby quietly observes the world, her eyes moving gently as she watches everything around her. Trieu Duong carefully picks up his tools again and continues working. Every movement is steady and controlled. Now that Truc Lam is on his back, he becomes even more mindful of each step and each action. Even something as simple as lifting a stone requires attention so that he does not disturb her too much. But Truc Lam seems comfortable. She rests quietly against Trieu Duong's back, occasionally making small sounds as she looks around at the trees, the sky, and the peaceful yard. For Trieu Duong, moments like this feel meaningful. Instead of separating work from caring for his daughter, he now learns how to do both at the same time. Step by step, the small kitchen begins to take shape. Trieu Duong continues arranging stones to strengthen the stove base. Some stones need to be rotated slightly, others need to be pushed deeper into place to make the structure more stable. Occasionally, he pauses to check on Truc Lam. He gently touches her small hand to make sure she is comfortable. Sometimes she responds by moving slightly or making a soft sound, letting him know she is awake and calm. The connection between father and daughter is quiet but strong. After finishing the main stove base, Trieu Duong begins building the sides of the cooking area. These stones will help hold the cooking pot securely and keep the fire contained when he cooks later. He works patiently, adjusting each piece carefully. The sun slowly moves higher in the sky as the hours pass. The warmth of the afternoon begins to spread across the yard. At one point, Truc Lam starts to make small sounds again. Trieu Duong pauses and gently reaches behind to check on her. He lightly pats her back and speaks softly. His calm voice seems to reassure her, and after a moment she settles again, quietly resting against him. With Truc Lam comfortable, Trieu Duong continues the work. Next, he gathers a few wooden pieces to build a small shelf area beside the stove. This will allow him to place cooking utensils, pots, and firewood within easy reach. Everything is designed to make daily cooking simpler and safer, especially while taking care of Truc Lam. Piece by piece, the new kitchen space becomes more complete. The stone stove now stands firmly in place. The surrounding area has been cleared and organized, creating enough room for Trieu Duong to cook comfortably. Finally, after several hours of careful work, the small kitchen is finished. Trieu Duong steps back and looks at it quietly. It is not large and it is not fancy, but it is practical, strong, and built with purpose. Most importantly, it allows him to stay close to Truc Lam while preparing meals. As the afternoon slowly turns toward evening, the sky begins to soften with warm colors. The light becomes golden and the air grows cooler. Trieu Duong gently unties the cloth and carefully lifts Truc Lam from his back. He holds her in his arms for a moment, allowing her to stretch and move freely after spending time wrapped against him. Truc Lam blinks slowly, looking around with curious eyes. Trieu Duong smiles at her. The long day of building is finally finished. Now it is time to try cooking the very first meal on the new stove. Trieu Duong places Truc Lam safely on a small blanket nearby where she can see him. From there, she watches quietly as he prepares the firewood. He gathers several dry sticks and places them carefully inside the new stove. With a bit of patience, he lights the fire. Soon a small flame begins to grow. The crackling sound of burning wood fills the evening air. Thin smoke slowly rises into the sky as the fire becomes steady. Trieu Duong places a cooking pot on top of the stove and begins preparing dinner. Tonight's meal is simple, but it carries a special meaning. It is the very first meal cooked on the new kitchen that he built while caring for Truc Lam. As the food begins to cook, warm steam rises from the pot. The smell of the meal slowly spreads through the quiet yard. Nearby, Truc Lam watches her father carefully. Sometimes she moves her small hands or kicks her tiny feet, as if reacting to the sounds and smells around her. Trieu Duong occasionally turns to look at her, making sure she is comfortable and safe. Every time their eyes meet, he smiles. The fire continues to burn steadily beneath the pot, and the food slowly becomes ready. As darkness gradually falls across the countryside, the small yard becomes peaceful again. The only light now comes from the gentle glow of the fire beneath the stove. Trieu Duong carefully finishes cooking and prepares the meal. He looks at the small kitchen once more, feeling satisfied. Today was not just about building a stove. It was about creating a space where he can work, cook, and care for Truc Lam at the same time. A place where both father and daughter can continue their journey together. With the first meal ready and the evening settling in, Trieu Duong picks up Truc Lam again, holding her gently in his arms as the warm fire continues to glow beside their new kitchen. In this video, we follow a peaceful and heartwarming day in the life of Trieu Duong and baby Truc Lam. The morning begins with Trieu Duong gently feeding Truc Lam and patiently rocking her to sleep. Once she is resting, he steps outside to start building a new kitchen near the house, so he can cook while still keeping a close eye on his daughter. Using simple materials like stones and wood, Trieu Duong carefully constructs a small but practical stove. When Truc Lam wakes up, he lovingly carries her on his back and continues working with her by his side. As evening arrives, the new kitchen is finally complete. To celebrate the hard work of the day, Trieu Duong prepares the very first meal on the new stove. ending the day with a quiet, meaningful moment between father and daughter.